The diner smelled of freshly brewed coffee and toasted bread, but in the corner, at table 6, something far heavier lingered in the air. A woman in her late 30s bent over, wiping crumbs from the booth with a rag that had seen better days. Her hands trembled slightly, her nails bitten down, and her shoulders carried an invisible weight that made her appear older than she was. Her uniform was faded, her shoes scuffed, and though she moved with the practiced rhythm of someone who had done this countless times, her silence spoke louder than words. She cleaned the table silently, her eyes cast downward, hoping nobody would notice her, praying her presence blended into the background. At that exact moment, a little boy sitting with his father at the next table tugged at his dad's sleeve. His voice was innocent, curious, and yet piercingly direct as he said, "Daddy, look, it's her again." The father froze, spoon halfway to his mouth, and when his eyes followed his son's small finger, recognition flashed in his gaze. He looked at the woman, then back at his son, and an uneasy hush fell over the table. The boy didn't fully understand what he had just said, but for the woman wiping down table 6, her world stopped for a second. Friends, before I take you further into this story, let me pause and ask something from you. If you believe in kindness, second chances, and stories that remind us of the power of compassion, please take a moment to like this video, share it with someone you care about, leave a comment, and subscribe to Hopeful Stories. It helps us keep bringing you powerful, true-to-life stories that can change perspectives and hearts. Now, let's continue. The woman's name was Emily Carter, and once upon a time, she had walked into rooms where people smiled at her presence. She had been a teacher in Madison, Wisconsin, a warm, bright educator who children adored and parents trusted. Her life had been ordinary, but full of meaning until one mistake had taken everything away. Years ago, in a moment of weakness after her husband left her, Emily had spiraled. Bills piled up, the loneliness clawed at her heart, and one night, she turned to alcohol to numb the pain. That night ended in flashing lights, sirens, and her arrest for driving under the influence. Nobody had been hurt, but her reputation was shattered. She lost her job, her standing in the community, and even custody of her son, Caleb. Since then, Emily had been piecing together a life from the fragments left behind. She had taken jobs wherever she could find them, cleaning, waitressing, stocking shelves, and though she smiled at customers when she had to, inside she carried a well of shame so deep that sometimes it was hard to breathe. Every time she looked at families eating together, laughter spilling from their tables, she remembered the boy she had once tucked in a bed, kissed goodnight, and promised to protect. But she had failed. On this chilly autumn morning, Emily thought the diner was just another day, another set of tables to wipe, another round of coffee pots to refill. Until the boy pointed. Until she looked up and saw them. David Anderson and his little boy, Noah. David had once been her neighbor. He had watched Emily's downfall from a distance, but never judged her openly. She remembered the day he carried groceries to her door when she was too embarrassed to ask for help. His kindness back then had stung because it reminded her of how far she had fallen. Now, years later, she stood in front of him again, rag in hand, uniform wrinkled, with nothing left of her former dignity. David's eyes softened as recognition settled. He remembered Emily not as the broken woman in front of him, but as the teacher who had taught his niece to read, who had volunteered at the community center, who had always been the first to raise her hand when help was needed. "It's her again," Noah had said because they had seen her before. Weeks ago, cleaning tables at a different diner across town. The boy, innocent and unfiltered, simply noticed patterns. But for Emily, those words cut deep, as if life was mocking her, trapping her in an endless cycle of being the woman who cleans tables. Her cheeks flushed crimson, and she muttered, "Excuse me," as she hurried past, gripping the rag so tightly her knuckles turned white. She wanted to disappear, to melt into the linoleum floor, to never have to see pity in familiar eyes again. But something unexpected happened. Instead of turning away, David called the waitress over and asked for their bill early. Then he did something Emily would never forget. He left a $50 tip on a $12 meal, scribbling on the receipt in block letters. "Keep going. You matter." When Emily saw the note, her chest tightened. She swallowed hard, tears welling but refusing to fall in front of strangers. The manager called her over to clear the table, and there it was, the message staring back at her like a lifeline thrown to someone drowning. For the first time in months, Emily didn't feel invisible. That night, she lay awake in her small studio apartment, staring at the ceiling. She thought about her mistakes, her son who lived with her sister in Illinois, and the years lost to regret. But she also thought about that note. She didn't know why David had written it or if he truly meant it, but something inside her shifted. The following weeks brought small but significant changes. Emily began attending a local recovery support group again, this time not because she was mandated, but because she wanted to heal. She stopped isolating herself and started talking to others who had walked similar broken roads. Every time she thought of giving up, she pulled that diner receipt out of her wallet and reread the words, "Keep going. You matter." Months passed, and one snowy December evening, Emily found herself assigned to a catering shift for a community Christmas event at the town hall. She almost didn't go. Her nerves gnawed at her, but she needed the paycheck. As she walked in carrying trays of food, she froze. There, near the front row, sat David and little Noah, bundled in matching scarves, smiling as they watched the choir perform. For a moment, Emily considered retreating to the kitchen, but something stronger pushed her forward. She carried the trays, placed them on the table, and when she turned to leave, Noah's voice rang out again. "Daddy, look, it's her again." This time, the words didn't sting. This time, Emily smiled. She crouched down, met Noah's curious eyes, and said softly, "Hi there." The boy grinned and waved, no judgment in his small face, only warmth. David nodded respectfully, his eyes filled not with pity but with pride, as if to say, "I see the fight in you, and I honor it." That night, after the event ended, Emily stood outside in the falling snow, the town hall lights glowing behind her. She breathed deeply, the cold air filling her lungs, and for the first time in years, she felt something like hope blooming inside. She wasn't just the woman who cleaned tables silently. She was Emily Carter, a woman who had stumbled, fallen, and was slowly rising again. Friends, if this story touched your heart, I invite you to show your support. Please like this video, share it with someone who needs hope today, leave a comment with your thoughts, and don't forget to subscribe to Hopeful Stories. Your engagement helps us spread more stories of resilience, redemption, and the quiet power of kindness. And before we end, here's a special request. Please comment below with the words, "Keep going, you matter," so that anyone who reads the comments feels a little less alone. Emily's journey wasn't over that snowy night. Redemption rarely comes in a single moment. It's built slowly, with every choice to keep moving forward. But one boy's innocent words, one father's small act of kindness, and one woman's courage to try again proved something powerful. No matter how far someone falls, no matter how broken their past, there is always room for a second chance.